The wind blew across the empty plains of the Forgotten Zone, cold and sharp, like a knife. Rusty metal bones of old war machines lay broken under the gray sky. No one lived here anymore. No one came here except the ones running from something. Worse, 2 alien women moved quietly through the ruins. They were sisters Nira, the older one, and Leary, the younger. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes glowed faintly. They wore torn cloaks, stained with dust. Their breathing was fast, their eyes always looking behind. "We must keep moving," Nira said, in a low voice. "They're close," Leary whispered. Her hands shaking, they had escaped from a ship prison 2 nights ago. Now, they were hiding in a place even the stars had forgotten. But the hunters were still chasing them, merciless bounty seekers from the Goran Empire. The sisters didn't know how long they could survive. Suddenly, Leary stepped on something. A strange metal plate under the dirt. It clicked. "Nira!" She shouted, but it was too late. The ground opened beneath them with a loud crash. They both fell, screaming, into darkness. They landed hard, hitting sharp metal and cold steel. Nira cried out in pain. Her leg was bleeding. Leary was covered in dirt, coughing and gasping. They had fallen into a large metal cage. Hidden beneath the surface, old rusted bars curved over them like the ribs of a beast. The walls were stained with old blood, and bones lay in the corners. It was an ancient war, trap forgotten by most, still deadly to the unlucky. Nira pulled herself to Leary, checking her for wounds. "I'm okay," Leary said weakly, "but I can't climb out." Nira looked up. The hole above was high, and the rusted bars were sharp. There was no ladder, no rope, no signal. Their communicator was smashed. Their food gone. Only silence surrounded them now. "We're going to die here, aren't we?" Leary whispered, her voice trembling. Nira didn't answer. She held her sister close and looked at the sky. Clouds moved slowly, blocking even the smallest light. It was like the world itself had forgotten them. "I'm sorry, Leary," Nira whispered. Tears rolled down her cheeks, falling into the dust. They sat together in silence. Too tired to scream, too weak to fight, they had no weapons left, no strength to climb. The cold was creeping in. Stealing their warmth, Leary leaned her head on Nira's shoulder, closing her eyes. Then, a sound, a faint crunch. Footsteps. Nira's head snapped up. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice shaking. Leary blinked slowly. "Maybe I'm dreaming." But no, it came again. Closer this time. Heavy boots, walking on rust and stone. Nira stood, ignoring the pain in her leg. She climbed halfway up the bars and peeked through a crack in the trap. Her breath caught in her throat. A man was walking through the ruins. Not an alien, not a hunter, a human. He was tall and strong, wearing old battle armor covered in dust. He had a rifle on his back, a flashlight on his shoulder. His face was tired, scarred, and calm. He looked like he had seen too many battles. Yet, something in his eyes was not cold, it was searching. Nira didn't know whether to call out or stay silent. Humans were strange to them. Some were kind, some cruel. What if he was worse than the hunters? But what if he was their only chance? She took a deep breath and shouted, "Please, help us." The man stopped. He looked around slowly, carefully. Then he walked toward the sound. His flashlight beam landed on the cage, on their broken faces. He paused for a moment, then said, in a calm voice, "Don't move. I'll get you out." Nira stared at him, unsure if she should believe. But something in his voice felt real. He took out a tool from his bag and began cutting the old bars. Sparks flew. The metal groaned. The sisters held hands, watching in silence. After a few minutes, he pulled the bar open just enough for them to crawl out. He reached a hand down. Nira hesitated, then placed her hand in his. It was warm, strong, and steady. He pulled her up, then Leary, with ease. They stood in the open again, under the broken sky. The man looked at them and said, "You're not safe here," Naira asked. "Who are you?" He just said, "Someone who knows what it feels like to be left behind," and with that, he turned and started walking. The sisters followed him, limping, unsure of where they were going. But they knew one thing: hope had found them again, even in the rusted trap of the Forgotten Zone. The human walked ahead, silent and sure. His boots crunched softly against broken steel and sand. The alien sisters followed closely. Still weak, still limping, the younger one, Leary, held on to Naira's arm, her legs trembling. Their clothes were torn, their bodies bruised. But they were alive, and behind them, the rusted trap disappeared into the mist. The man didn't speak for a long time. He moved like someone used to danger. Always watching the shadows, every sound made him pause. Every breeze made his hand twitch near his weapon. Naira studied him from behind. He was not like any soldier she had seen before. His armor was patched together from different sources: human, alien, unknown. His backpack clanked softly, filled with tools, cables, and strange gear. But he carried himself like someone who didn't belong anywhere. Finally, Naira asked, "What is this place?" The man stopped and turned. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. "Old battleground," he said. "They left it to rot after the last metal war." Leary looked around at the twisted wreckage. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. The man shrugged. "Looking for broken things." Then he turned and walked again. Naira narrowed her eyes. That answer wasn't enough. But for now, she said nothing. They reached a small hidden tunnel under a collapsed tank. The man ducked inside and waved for them to follow. Inside it was dark, but warmer than the outside wind. There was a small campan, old blanket, some water bottles, a heat stone. It wasn't much, but it was safe. "Sit," the man said. "You need rest." The sisters sat down carefully, their muscles aching. He handed them water without a word. Leary drank fast, tears in her eyes. Naira drank slower, watching him closely. "What do we call you?" she asked. The man stared into the corner of the tunnel. "Don't bother," he said. "Name doesn't matter." Naira frowned. "Everyone has a name." "Not anymore," he said quietly. "Lost it a long time ago." They sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the wind howling outside. Then the man reached into his bag and pulled out dried food. He handed it to them, one piece each. It wasn't much, but it tasted like life. Leary smiled weakly. "Thank you." He nodded once. Then he finally asked, "Why were you out there?" "In that zone." Naira glanced at Leary, who nodded slowly. "We were running from bounty hunters," Naira said. "They want something we carry." The man tilted his head. "Credits." "No," Naira said, and her voice turned cold. "Something far more important." He didn't ask what. He just looked at them for a long time, then said, "I don't care what it is. If they come, I'll stop them." Naira felt a strange chill. There was no emotion in his voice, only certainty. She asked, "Why would you help us? You don't even know us." The man's jaw tightened. "I've seen too many people left to die," he said. "Didn't want to see it happen again," Leary whispered. "Were you a soldier?" He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded slowly, "A long time ago." Naira lowered her eyes. "Then you know how cruel the galaxy can be." "Yes," he said, "but I also know not everyone deserves to suffer." Suddenly, the tunnel shook slightly. A low rumble echoed from above. The man grabbed his weapon and crawled to the entrance. He peeked outside, then cursed under his breath. "What is it?" Naira asked quickly. "Scanners," he said. "Small ones, floating in air. They're looking for something." The sisters froze. "They found our trail," Leary said, her face pale. The man turned back. "We need to move soon, before nightfall." "But—" Leary's leg, Naira started, I'll carry her if I have to. The man said, but we can't stay. He walked to a corner of the tunnel and opened a hidden case. Inside were supplies, gloves, cloaks, small weapons. He handed Naira a stun blade and a new pair of boots. Take these, they'll help you move faster. Then he knelt beside Leary and checked her wound. He cleaned it fast, tied it tight, and gave her a pain patch. She winced but said nothing. You're brave, he said to her softly. Leary smiled faintly. I'm just scared and tired. Bravery and fear aren't opposites, he said. Sometimes they live in the same heart. The sisters stared at him. This man with no name, no past, and no reason to help them. And yet, here he was, saving them from death, giving them shelter. And asking for nothing. As they prepared to leave, Naira looked at him and whispered, Thank you, stranger. He looked at her and said nothing, but in his eyes, something flickered, maybe pain, maybe memory. Then he turned and said, Let's move, and together, they stepped out into the ruins again, with no plan, no map, only footsteps and hope to guide them. The sky above was gray and wide, filled with smoke from distant fires. The ruined world seemed to stretch forever, broken towers and silent machines rising like ghosts. The man with no name walked ahead, leading the two alien sisters through the rubble. His steps were quiet, but his eyes moved constantly. Searching for danger in every shadow, Leary limped beside Naira, her arm around her sister's waist. She tried not to cry. Even when the pain came sharp and sudden, Naira didn't speak much now. Her focus was on each step, on keeping her sister upright. The man suddenly raised his hand, signaling them to stop. They froze, barely breathing. He pointed ahead, to a crack in a wall where soft light flickered. Then he moved forward slowly, his body low, weapon ready. Behind the wall was a hollow shell of a building. Inside it, a safe space, hidden from sky scans. He checked it twice before waving them in. The sisters entered, dropping to the ground with exhaustion. The man sealed the crack behind them using a thermal seal strip. For now, they were hidden. Leary leaned her head on Naira's shoulder. I can't go much longer, she whispered, her voice thin like wind. Naira brushed her hair softly. You will, you have to, she said, though her heart was heavy. The man sat across from them and took off his gloves. He stared at them in silence, like he was studying their faces. Then he asked quietly, What are you really carrying? Naira's eyes narrowed. I told you, she said. It's not for sale, not even for trust. I'm not here to trade, he replied. But I need to know if it's going to kill us all if it breaks open. Leary sat up, her face pale. But firm, it won't explode, she said. It's alive. The man blinked slowly. Alive. Naira reached into her torn cloak and pulled out a small case. It was oval, made of black crystal with silver veins running through it. She opened it just a little, just enough to show what was inside. A soft light glowed from within, golden and warm. Floating in liquid was a tiny shape, delicate, glowing, curled like a sleeping baby. The man stared, unable to speak for a moment. What is it? He finally asked. Naira closed the case gently. It's the last seed of Varellus, she said. The final child of our people. The last, he whispered. Our world was dying, Leary said. The sun turned sick. The oceans dried, and the science lords decided no more children would be born. They said we were too weak. Too few, Naira added. They started burning the birthing pods, one by one, but we stole this one. Leary said, a tear rolling down her cheek. We couldn't let it die too. The man leaned back slowly, his face unreadable. So they sent hunters after you, he said, to erase the last chance. Naira nodded. They want silence, not hope. He closed his eyes for a moment, like he was remembering something painful. I've seen this before, he said. A dying world choosing to forget instead of fight. He stood up and walked to the wall. Tapping at a hidden panel, "I have a path," he said. "Old tunnels from the war. They run deep, under the scanner grid. You'll take us?" Leary asked softly, surprised. The man turned, his eyes steady. "I said I'd help, didn't I?" Naira looked at him long and hard. "You don't even know us." She said again. He gave a small shrug. "I don't need to," he said. "I know what you're carrying, and that's enough." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Leary smiled. "Just a little. You're strange human," she said. "Strange keeps people alive," he replied with a small smirk. Naira opened the case once more and looked at the glowing seed inside. "If we can reach the outer ring, we can call for help," she said. "There's a ship waiting." "I'll get you there," the man said. "I promise." The night crept in slowly. The world outside, silent and cruel. Inside the broken shelter. Warmth returned not from fire, but from shared purpose. The man placed a sensor alarm by the door, then leaned against the wall, weapon resting on his lap. Before sleep took them, Leary looked at Naira and whispered, "Do you think he's telling the truth?" Naira watched the man's sleeping face, calm and scarred. "I think he's lost something too," she said. "And maybe, just maybe, helping us helps him remember who he was." And in the corner, hidden in shadow, the case pulsed with soft, golden light. A heartbeat of a future still waiting to be born. Asterisk, the wind outside howled like a starving beast. The ruined city groaned as metal towers shifted and creaked in the night. Inside the shelter, all was still, except for the soft, steady beeping of the motion sensor. The man with no name sat with his back against the wall, his eyes open, always. Watching Naira and Leary slept near the warmth of the heat stone. The crystal case lay between them, glowing faintly with life. Time moved slowly. Like the city itself was holding its breath. Then the sensor beeped twice, short and sharp. The man was on his feet before the third beep. He crawled silently to the sealed crack in the wall and looked through a small gap. His breath caught red lights floated in the dark, blinking slowly, searching, scanners, and not just one, 3. Of them circling in wide loops like hunting birds. He turned and whispered, "Wake up, both of you." Naira opened her eyes fast, her hand going to her side. Leary groaned softly, her body still sore. "What is it?" Naira asked quickly. "They're here," the man said. "Scouts." Naira's face turned pale. Leary clutched the case tighter, holding it close to her chest. The man moved fast. Packing the supplies and checking his gear. "We need to move now." Before they triangulate, he said, he gave Leary a stim patch. Enough to keep her alert and walking. Outside, the scanners drifted lower. Red lights sweeping across ruins, the man led them through a narrow tunnel under the floor. It was tight, filled with dust and old wires, but it was safe for now. They moved in silence. Only the sound of their breathing and the distant hum of machines. After a long, slow crawl, they reached a dead end. The man pulled a hidden lever, and a hatch opened above. He climbed out first, checked the area, then helped the sisters out. They were now in the shell of a collapsed transport station. Rusted rails ran across the cracked ground, and old train pods lay on their sides like fallen beasts. Suddenly, the silence shattered. A loud crack echoed through the station. Followed by a burst of energy, the man spun, pulling his rifle down. He shouted, pushing the sisters behind a broken wall. Red plasma bolts shot across the space, melting metal and stone. 3 bounty hunters stepped out from the shadows, armored in black and red. Their helmets glowing, one of them taller than the rest, raised a megaphone. "Turn over the package and we'll spare your lives," he called, his voice deep and cold. The man didn't answer. He scanned the space and whispered, "There's a back door, but it's far, and they're blocking the path." Naira held the case tighter. They want the child, she said. Not us. We're not giving it to them, the man said sharply. Leary looked at him, eyes wide. You'd fight for something that's not yours? The man didn't look at her. He just said, some things are too important to belong to anyone. He gave Naira a small flare. When I say run, throw this toward the north side. It'll blind their sensors for 10 seconds. What about you? She asked. I'll cover you, he said. He turned, raised his rifle, and waited. The bounty hunters moved closer. Another voice shouted, you have 10 seconds to surrender. The man whispered. Now, Naira stood and threw the flare. As hard as she could, it hit the ground and exploded in a flash of white light. The hunters staggered, their helmets buzzing. Run! The man shouted, opening fire. Plasma shots roared through the station as Naira and Leary ran. The man moved with them, firing shot after shot. He hit one hunter square in the chest, knocking him into a wall, but the others were fast. One of them launched a drone. It flew after the sisters with a shrill sound. The man turned and threw an electric pulse grenade. It exploded mid-air, sending the drone crashing into the ground. Leary stumbled, and Naira caught her. We're almost there. Naira shouted, her voice breaking. Ahead, the back door glowed faintly. The man reached it first, entered a code, and the panel slid open. Inside, he yelled. They all rushed in, the door closing behind them with a heavy slam. The man locked it tight and welded the seams with a quick burst of fire. They collapsed inside a dark, narrow corridor, panting and shaking. We made it, Leary gasped. Not yet, the man said. They'll follow, they always do. He looked at the sisters, his face tired but determined. From here, we go underground. He said, no more hiding. No more running in circles. Naira nodded. And when? We reach the outer ring. The man checked his rifle. Then we send a signal to someone who still believes in saving lives. As the corridor lights flickered on, the man looked down the long tunnel behind them. The hunters prepared to break through again, but a head hope still waited. The underground tunnel was cold and narrow. Flickering lights buzzed above their heads, casting long shadows on the cracked floor. The man walked ahead, rifle held tight, scanning every dark corner. Naira followed close behind, supporting Leary, who still limped with every step. The case was cradled in Leary's arms, glowing softly with the life it held. For hours they walked, the silence broken only by the hum of machines deep in the walls. Old train rails ran beneath their feet, rusted and useless now. This path had not been used for years, not by people, not by hope. Leary's breathing grew harder, her steps slower. Naira stopped, crouched beside her. We need to rest, she said gently. She can't keep going like this. The man turned and looked at them. He hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, he said. No more. They found a broken control room on the side of the tunnel. The man kicked the door open and cleared the dust. Naira helped Leary lie down on a bench. Placing the case beside her, the man stood by the door, watching, always listening. Naira looked at him carefully. His face was tired, older than it looked before, but his eyes, they held questions. And pain, and something like guilt. Finally, he spoke. You should tell me what's really inside that thing. Naira tensed. We told you already, she said. It's a seed, the last one. I believe you. The man said, his voice low. But I need to know why it matters so much. Why the Empire would send hunters across the stars to erase it. Naira walked to the case and opened it just a little. The soft golden light lit the room like a tiny sun. Inside, the small being floated in its crystal fluid, unmoving but glowing with energy. She's not just a child, Naira said. She's everything that was taken from us. Leary spoke from the bench, her voice weak but clear. Varelis was once full of light, full of songs. We were peaceful, proud, and strong. But the science lords saw something else, a future without us. They said our species was outdated. Naira continued that we were too emotional, too soft, so they ended the next generation before it could even begin. The man stepped closer, but this one survived. He said, because of you too. Naira nodded. We were scientists, once biologists in the old moon labs. We found the genetic code buried deep in the archive, and we grew her in. Secret, Leary smiled faintly. She's not just Varellus. She's more than that. She's made from us, too. The man stared at the case, his voice quiet. She's your daughter. Nira's eyes filled with tears. We never gave her a name. We were too afraid she wouldn't make it. But yes, she's ours. The man didn't speak for a long time. He sat down on the floor and took off one of his gloves, revealing a scarred hand. They took my daughter too, he said, his voice shaking slightly, not with guns, but with war. With lies, with silence. Nira and Leary looked at him, surprised by his words. I was a soldier, he said, fought for Earth in a war we didn't need. They told us we were saving lives, protecting freedom, but we were just clearing ground for someone richer. He stared at the floor, eyes distant. My daughter died while I was off-world, and I wasn't there to hold her. Naira placed a hand on his arm. I'm sorry, she said. The man nodded slowly. I don't know why I'm helping you, he said, but maybe this is my way back. A soft beep broke the silence. The man stood instantly, scanning the panel beside the door. Movement, he said. They're not far. Leary struggled to sit up. We can't run again. She said, not without leaving something behind. No, the man said firmly. We don't leave anyone. He opened a hidden compartment in the control room wall. Inside were old transport suits, thin armor, cloaks, and magnetic boots. Put these on, he said. They'll help us move faster. As Naira helped Leary into the suit, she looked at the man. What happens if we're caught? He looked at her and answered without fear. Then I fight. Leary held the case tightly, pressing it to her chest. She kicked. She whispered suddenly, I felt it. Naira gasped, her eyes wide. The man looked stunned. You're sure? Leary nodded, tears running down her face. She's alive. She's strong. She wants to live. The man smiled faintly for the first time. Then let's get her out of here, he said, no matter what it takes. And with that, they stepped back into the tunnel, not just as fugitives, but as a family. And behind them, the light in the case pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger with every step they took. Asterisk, the tunnel walls shook with every distant blast. Dust fell from the ceiling, like dry rain. The lights flickered, one by one, fading into darkness. The man with no name led the way, his rifle raised. Naira and Leary followed close behind, both wrapped in the stolen transport suits. Leary held the glowing case to her chest, as if protecting her very soul. Her steps were slow, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. They're breaching the upper tunnel, the man said, his voice tight. They're cutting through the wall. Nira looked back, her hand reaching for Leary. How much farther? She asked. There's an old evac pad near the end, he replied. If we can get it working, a ship might pick up the signal, but will they reach us before the hunters do? Leary asked, her voice shaking. The man didn't answer. He didn't want to lie. The walls trembled again, this time closer. Behind them, the hum of drones echoed through the tunnel. Red lights began to flicker behind the cracks in the wall. They're releasing flamebirds, the man said, loading another clip into his rifle. Drones that burn everything in their path. Leary stumbled slightly, and Naira caught her. I'm fine, Leary whispered. Keep going, ahead. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber filled with old cargo crates and rusted vehicles. The floor was cracked and uneven. Steam hissed from broken pipes in the center. A small platform blinked with a faint blue light. "The evac pad," the man said. Rushing forward, he pulled open the control. Panel wires sparking as he worked. "System is old, no fuel, weak signal, but maybe. Just maybe." He connected his wrist unit to the pad, transferring power from his own battery. His body jerked as the energy drained, but he kept going. Leary knelt down beside him, placing the crystal case on the pad. "It's glowing brighter," she said softly. "She knows," Naira whispered. "She's waiting." The door behind them exploded, metal flying like shrapnel. 3 hunters stormed through, weapons raised, their armor hissed with heat, their faces hidden behind red helmets. The man stood and opened fire. "Get on the pad," he shouted. Naira pulled Leary toward the platform, shielding her with her body. The man moved like lightning, every shot precise. 1 hunter fell, but the other 2 spread out. Surrounding them, "We only want the seed." One of them shouted, "Give her to us, and we'll let you go." "You're lying," Naira snapped, her voice full of fire. "Then die with it," the hunter hissed. The man charged, ramming into one of the hunters with full force. They crashed into the wall, grappling, blades and fists colliding. The third hunter raised his rifle and aimed at the sisters. Leary screamed, but before the shot came, the man appeared again. He tackled the hunter from behind, his armor smoking. With a final blast from his sidearm, the enemy dropped, motionless. The room was filled with smoke and fire. The evac pad beeped 3 times, then blinked green. "It's working." The man shouted, "Stand on it now." Naira and Leary stepped onto the platform, holding the case between them. The man reached for his gear, preparing to join them, but a sharp sound cracked through the chamber. A blast hit the man's shoulder, sending him to the ground. "No?" Leary screamed. The last hunter stepped forward, burned and bleeding, but still alive. The man raised his weapon again, hand shaking. "Go," he said, coughing. Now, the platform began to glow. Humming with rising energy, Naira reached out. Her hand, tears in her eyes. "Come with us." The man shook his head slowly. "They'll follow the signal," he said. "I'll hold them off." Leary's lip trembled. "You'll die," she whispered. The man gave a faint smile. "Not today." With a flash of blue light, the platform activated. A beam shot upward through the ceiling. The sisters vanished, along with the unborn child. The chamber fell silent for a moment. The last hunter staggered forward. His weapon raised, the man stood, blood running down his arm. He took one final breath and charged. Blades clashed, sparks flew. And then silence, far above, in the cold sky. A beacon blinked. A rescue ship turned toward it, engines roaring. Inside, Naira held Leary close, the case still glowing between them. "She saved us," Naira whispered. "No," Leary said, tears falling. "He did." And far below, in the fire and the dust, a scarred man lay still, but the light he protected lived on. The stars above were calm and endless. The rescue ship glided through the black sky like a silent bird. Inside, the air was clean, the lights soft, and the walls hummed with quiet energy. Naira sat beside a large viewing window, staring out at the darkness. Leary lay in a medical pod nearby, her wounds healing slowly, her breathing steady. The crystal case rested between them, pulsing gently with golden light. The unborn child within floated peacefully. Safe at last, but there was no peace in Naira's heart. Her hands shook, her throat felt tight. She kept seeing his face, the way he smiled through pain, the way he said, "Not today." And then he was gone. Leary opened her eyes slowly. "Are we safe?" she whispered. Naira nodded, her voice low. "Yes, we're safe now." Leary looked at the glowing case and smiled. "She's alive, yes," Naira said, brushing her sister's hair. "But he's not." Leary's smile faded, silence filled the cabin, heavy and sharp. A soft chime echoed, and a voice spoke over the ship's speaker, approaching safe zone, 20 minutes to landing. Naira stood up and walked to the panel, placing her hand on the surface. Can you scan for life? Signs below. She asked the ship's AI. The voice replied gently. Life signs in the lower sector of the ruins are faint but present. Naira froze, her breath catching. What? Repeat, the AI said. One faint human life sign detected near. Blast origin, Naira's heart slammed against her chest. Leary, she gasped. He might be alive. Leary tried to sit up, eyes wide. Then we have to go back. Naira hesitated. Torn between fear and hope, the ship's voice spoke again. Warning, area is unstable, risk level high. I don't care, Naira whispered. I need to know. 15 minutes later. A scout pod detached from the main ship. It dropped. Quietly back to the ruined world below. Naira stood inside, armored in light gear, holding a tracker linked to the last life signal. She left the crystal case with Leary, safe in the ship. If I don't come back, she said, you raise her. For both of us, the pod touched down gently, smoke and ash swirling outside. Naira stepped into the broken earth once more. The air smelled of fire and iron. She followed the signal, moving through twisted metal and burning wreckage. The evac chamber was still half standing. The rest collapsed in ruin. She moved faster. Heart pounding, and then she saw him. He lay under a metal beam, blood on his face, his arm twisted. But his eyes opened as she came near. You're back, he said, his voice rough but alive. Naira dropped to her knees, tears pouring down her cheeks. I thought you were gone, she cried. You were supposed to be gone. He smiled weakly. Didn't feel like dying yet, she helped him sit up slowly, wrapping his shoulder in a med wrap. You shouldn't have stayed behind, she whispered. You needed time, he said. And she needed to live. They sat in silence for a long moment, surrounded by smoke and silence. Then Naira smiled through her tears. She kicked again. The man chuckled softly. She's a fighter, just like her mother's. The rescue ship hovered above them now. Lowering cables and lights, medics descended, lifting him gently, guiding Naira back into the pod. When they returned, Leary was already waiting. Holding the case like it was part of her body, her eyes widened with joy when she saw him. You're really alive, she whispered. Can't seem to stay dead, he said, smiling through pain. In the days that followed, they stayed together in a recovery station orbiting a green moon. Leary grew stronger. Naira stopped waking up in fear, and the man he began to laugh again. They named the child Solari. After the lost light of Varelis, her case was placed in a safe chamber, where she would soon be born one evening as the three of them stood under a sky full of stars. Leary asked softly, what will we tell her when she asks where she came from? The man looked at the stars. We'll tell her the truth, he said. That she was born from courage, from love, and from fire. Naira nodded. And that a nameless man chose to fight, not because he had to but because he believed we were worth saving. The man looked at them both and said, maybe it's time I had a name again. Leary smiled. We'll help you choose one. And under the stars, they stood together. Not just survivors, not just fugitives, but a family. And far inside the station, the unborn child turned gently in her light. Safe, loved, and ready to begin.